This is Astro Highlight, brought to you by HealthMasterySystems.com. The Sun is in Nurturing Cancer, and the Moon, presently in Visionary Aquarius, will move into Idealistic Pisces by this evening, Pacific Time. I'm KG Stiles, and I'm being joined by celebrity astrologer Neil D. Paris of NewWorldAstrology.com. You with me, Neil?
Hi, KG.
Hi. So we experienced the first grand cross that was activated by a full moon lunar eclipse in Capricorn last Saturday, June 26th. This potent full moon eclipse was conjunct the planet Pluto. During the next 2 weeks, we have an opportunity to integrate these energies unleashed by Saturday's eclipse. How do we best do this, Neil? We were talking before the show about some of the things that are very exciting that are unfolding.
Yeah, let me first say that, we have this lunar eclipse, and then 2 weeks later we have the solar eclipse, but the effect of these eclipses lasts quite a while, and I think so they'll stay with us. So I think that we're really getting to see the beginning. We're getting some hints at what's to come, the changes down the line. So eclipses often last about 6 months, and often up to a full year. So just remember, keep at the back of your head, and always listening, that these changes are unfolding over a period of time. Pluto is an energy that unfolds over a period of time too. So I think that the key. Let's start with the key point. The first part of the eclipse is the full moon, which is always bringing up emotional information. The full moon's about emotional awareness. It's when the sun and the moon are opposing each other in astrology. The sun is the consciousness, the conscious ego, and the moon is the unconscious. It's what's driving us beneath everything. And this, the full moon, the unconscious, was joined by Pluto, which is another kind of unconscious energy, which is really getting down to the core. The Pluto, the god of the underworld, all that emotional information that deep down there, where the real treasure is. Pluto was the lord of riches. He was the lord of, in astrology, the lord of the jewels under the ground. Of course, how do you get to the jewels under the ground? You have to dig through the dirt, right? So I think that the first point in this eclipse that we need to work through energetically in this next chunk, especially between now and the solar eclipse that's coming up, is all that, number one, the shadow material. I think really doing the shadow dance with ourselves. Our own shadow material is coming up. I think that our own darkness, our own power issues. I think what we're about to see, what I feel intuitively, is our power is coming back, and will be reflected back to us in things that are happening around us.
Authentic power.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of us don't realize how much power we really do have in shaping our own worlds. And I think that what's happening on the world stage. So I think that our power is coming back, and a lot of people who have disowned their power, I think it's going to be scary for some people, because then they're going to think that the power is external to them, that people are having control over them or trying to control them. So I think that we're about to see, as a people, as a nation, as a world, as a humanity, and as individuals, our own power externalized. I think that the full moon is projecting it onto other people. So I think that that's one way. So I think the more conscious you can be about how powerful you are as a creator, as a spiritual being, as a manifester, I think that that's really the key in this period. So the amount of power you see outside of yourself can only be in reflection to how much power is inside. So I think that will depend on whether you're the one being controlled, or you're seeming to be abused by people in positions of power around you. Is, can you step up to the plate and really tap into that power you have as a creator? And obviously part of that is about destroying. That's the Pluto energy. So you can't shy from the darkness. I think that the darkness is here to serve us.
I had an insight as you were talking about that. May I?
Yeah.
Yes, Saturn was a part of this Grand Cross, and it's coming more into play during this 2 weeks in this whole configuration that's getting played out in the heavens. And I think it's more, Saturn is definitely about your own authority, taking responsibility. And so I think that is coming in more into the picture, where we are beginning to take the opportunity anyway to take responsibility.
Right, that's important, and don't forget that this eclipse, this lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse, was in Capricorn, and that's ruled by Saturn. So that's perfect. That's perfect to bring that to the player. And I think that so when we get to near the end of July, Saturn moves into Libra, and that's that equalizer. And when we start seeing a balance between the power, that's the beautiful thing. So I think that try and be smart. I think everyone needs to try and get a little bit more smart about what's happening. With that Saturn moving to Libra, sign of the balance, sign of the scales, sign of relationship, as soon as you see power in the outside world, is to disconnect from what's happening externally and go back inside and say, okay, you know what, I'm in control of how I feel, and that's an important thing to bring into as well as this eclipse. The Sun and Mercury, the Sun of the ego and Mercury of the mind, the group mind, the universal mind, as it were, God mind, source mind, whatever you want to call it, manifesting through us as humans on the planet within Cancer, which relates to the emotional nature. So I think going back, disconnect from what's happening outside and go back inside and see how you feel about everything that's happening, because that will show you how you feel about this whole issue of authority and power. About whether you feel in control or whether you feel like you can use control to shape things, to really kind of get smart about what's happening and not feel like you're the victim of things that are happening around you.
And the feminine aspects are really coming into play more with the Cancer, and also Venus ruling, going as Saturn moves into Libra. Venus rules Libra, and so we are coming more to balance the male-female and beginning to integrate some of the feminine aspects.
Yeah, and we need that now as a balance. And then we move into August, we have Venus and Mars, the two love energies, as it were, the maleness, the Mars energy, and the femaleness, which is the Venus energy, both in Libra. So we have that with Saturn. So I think all that Libra energy, we need that balance. And I think that the reason why everything is orchestrated astrologically in a perfect higher sense, as it were, everything's kind of operational and it has a bigger reason behind it. So we don't just get thrown these energetic things happening on the planet and we're all as humans are being plunged into these dark times. We've always given it for a reason, and everything that's happening is unfolding for our highest good, and I think it's good to remember that. So stepping into our power, can you start realizing that you do have the power to react emotionally, right? And we were saying that earlier, which is how you react emotionally to what's happening to you in your personal life will dictate the path that you end up walking on. It will dictate your destination, your destiny, as it were, right? How you feel, which is that the Cancer part of the eclipse, and how you not control your feelings, but work with them and let them and shape them, as opposed to letting them shape you. I think if you can.
Yes, and something we said earlier in our last, I can't remember, one of our conversations, we talked about it's not what happens in your life, it's how you respond to it.
That's it. That's the key to shaping this next period between now and this next solar eclipse. And don't forget, the lunar eclipses are unconscious. That's the emotional information that's coming up. And emotions are, I always love bringing this information in during this time. Earth is a lexigram, as it were, of when you rearrange the letters of the word heart. And I think that, everything that happens on the planet is, in this dimension, physicality on Earth, is really about emotions. It comes down to that. That's the driving force. That's why we listen to music. That's why we watch certain films. We want to feel things. And I think that the Pluto attached to this eclipse is really the idea of, rebirthing ourselves emotionally.
Yes.
Really, just what's coming up, come up. Don't fight it. Don't push it away. If you push it away, it'll build. It'll get bigger. So whatever's coming up at you, welling up from the inside, or even other people around you, your co-workers, family, friends, people you want to call enemies, whatever you have around you is there energetically for you. It's perfect. So whatever's coming up in your life, in your emotional nature, even in your dreams, I think, because the moon is the unconscious and Pluto is such a depth energy, whatever's coming up is a material that really is parts of you, anything that you've disowned. And I think this is from other lifetimes, it's karmically, it's multidimensionally. I think that whatever's coming up and coming to us now is us. And that's going to be interesting for a lot of us to look at it and go, okay, that part that I don't like, I think that's dirty, it's icky, it's mucky, I don't want to look at that. Look at that. That's where the magic is.
That's where I
know that you and I, KG, have that kind of scorpionic energy, I know, in our personal chart. So I think that some people will find it easier, other people might pull against it, but Pluto is really the energy of looking at the sides of us that we disown because it's dark, and we don't think it's spiritual, we don't think it's light enough. And I think that when we look at that, that's where the magic is. So really face what's coming at you and know that it's time to kind of acknowledge it and put it to rest. It's time to breathe through it instead of fighting against stuff. And the more you keep fighting, I think it'll keep coming back.
So, and my recommendation to make the most of this 2-week cycle leading up to the new moon in Cancer for this solar eclipse is to actively engage, as we've been talking about, in space clearing within your body, your mind, your spirit, and your actual physical home or other physical spaces where you may frequent. So this is an opportunity to clear out the old patterns and make room for the new to come in. So I'm KG Stiles with celebrity astrologer Neil D. Paris with your Astro Highlights.